Hi there, how you guys doing? I hope your small groups are really getting close as you share and as you get to know each other better, and so that you're growing in your relationship with each other, as well as your relationship hopefully is improving with the Lord as you're getting into His Word and applying it to your lives. We're in Revelation chapter 2 this week, and we're looking at the message to 2 of the 7 churches, and so this is building on what we've already been studying. And I was thinking about how the enemy tries different tactics to destroy the influence of the gospel in our lives or through our lives. And he doesn't care what tactic works as long as he finds something that works. He tried to persecute the early Christians, and sometimes we get different types of persecution in our lives for our faith as well. But that really did not stop the gospel. In fact, in some ways, that helped. That fanned the flame, because people saw how these believers would die with so much peace and so much confidence in their Lord, and sometimes people came to faith just because of watching others get martyred. Other times when they got persecuted, they would run to another area for a while, and then they would share the gospel there, and that's why it's been said that the blood of the martyrs was a seed of the church, because it just grew because of all this persecution and scattered. And so that tactic really didn't work. So when the enemy figured out that wasn't working so well, by enemy I'm talking about the devil, I'm talking about the evil one, then he started trying to get compromise happening inside the church and false doctrine to distort the gospel. And so that's kind of the different tack that we're reading about here in the last part of Revelation 2. The enemy would like to get us into a ditch, get us off of that sweet highway of grace and truth and stuck in the ditch. You know, there was a blizzard a few years ago. It's been several years ago now, and I was coming home. I lived out at that time west of Berthoud near the foothills, and the snow was blowing so hard there was a whiteout, and I couldn't even see the road. And I thought I was on the road until I ended up stuck in the ditch, because I went off the road into such deep snow that not only was I stuck, I couldn't get my doors open at first because the snow was so deep in that ditch. So it was like I was imprisoned in my car, and I wasn't going anywhere. That's kind of a picture of what the enemy wants. He wants to get you in one ditch or the other ditch, so that you're not in the sweet spot of God's favor, God's truth, God's grace, the pure gospel truth, just walking down that highway. He wants you in the ditch. So there's 2 different ditches that he tries to get us in. One ditch is legalism. That's where we're all into the rules and into the law and into how can we get a long list of do's and don'ts and not only impose it on ourselves but impose it on everybody else, and it leads to ugly, pharisaical, grumpy, grouchy religion. It's not fun. It's not good, and so it robs us of joy. But incidentally, the book of Galatians was written about that problem, because there were these Judaizers that were trying to twist Paul's teaching and teach a Christ plus something gospel, which is really no gospel at all. The other ditch, though, is not legalism, it's license. And it's this idea that grace covers anything, so just go out and have fun and live any way you want. It doesn't matter, because you're covered by grace. And this was another false teaching that was also coming into the church. In fact, Paul in Galatians addresses both of these ideas. First of all, in Galatians 5 verse 1, he says, "It is for freedom that Christ has set us free. Stand firm then, and do not let yourself be burdened again by a yoke of slavery." There he's talking about coming under the law and legalism and the bondage of that. And he says, we're free in Christ. Don't go back under that. But then in verse 13 of Galatians 5, he says, "You, my brothers and sisters, were called to be free, but do not use your freedom to indulge the flesh, rather to serve one another humbly in love." In other words, he's saying, don't go to the other extreme. Don't say, okay, I'm not under law now, because I'm free, I'm just going to go indulge the flesh. Well, there were false teachers that were advocating that, actually. In fact, there's a little postcard that's just one page, one chapter called Jude, right in front of Revelation. So it's one page back from Revelation. And in Jude 4, there's a description of the kind of false teaching that we're going to be reading about in our study. It says, Jude 4, "For certain individuals whose condemnation was written about long ago have secretly slipped in among you. They are ungodly people," listen, "who pervert the grace of our God into a license for immorality and deny Jesus Christ, our only sovereign Lord." So that's the other slippery ditch that robs the gospel of truth, robs the truth of the gospel, and robs people of the freedom and joy of living in the gospel. Let's stay out of the ditches. So maybe as you go through these churches, the messages to Pergama and to Thyatira, with that in mind, think about what's the temptation for you, or what's the temptation for the Christian church in America, or what's the temptation for our church. Is it this ditch or this ditch? Whichever ditch it is, we want to stay out of it. And we want to just celebrate the truth of the gospel in Christ Jesus. Jesus said the truth will set you free. And the ditch, either ditch, will put you in bondage. Have a good study, and God bless you.